Did you know that 95% of your success as a business owner has nothing to do with your team, your strategy, or your market? It's about what's going on between your ears that matters most. I've coached CEOs in 11 different countries, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that the difference between those who break through growth barriers and those who don't is not their business plan, it's their mindset. Join me in this webinar where we unpack the power of the mind and how to use it to really unlock growth for you and your business.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to TLT, Thought Leaders Leadership, on this Thursday. And I'm with Elise. This is
Good
episode
morning.
3, Lead from the Inside Out, Unlocking the Power of Your Mind. This is very important, and I'm so excited to share that with you today.
Good morning, Francis. It's so great to be here. And this topic is something that I'm so passionate about because being an effective leader is all about understanding yourself, introspection, and being authentic, right? So today is almost like a culmination of a lot of things we've spoken about previously, and just really talking about how to be effective as a leader and really implement these things to make you more effective and your organization more effective.
Exactly. And so I think, we've already kind of talked about and touch base some of the things, and maybe we can do a little recap. Episode 1 was really about creating a vision that's so exciting that people will want to follow. And there's so many advantages and benefits to do that, because I think people want to be part of a great organization where they feel that the mission, the vision is so exciting, they want to be part of it. And then the second thing was the knowing doing gap. So we kind of learned that even though we want to do some of the things, there is something in the way, and those are the paradigms. And that's actually what we will talk about a little bit more deeper, about how the mind works and how can the leader lead from the inside out. Because when you learn how to lead from the inside out, that means that no external circumstances from your own life or the life of the organization will dictate how you're making decisions. And so, yeah, we will dive into how the mind works today, and with a good visual, because people think in terms of images. And so with that in mind, they'll have something to always go back to and see how their mind works.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to understand that, we introduced ideas of paradigms, and we're going to talk about it more today, but we each have paradigms as individuals, but then company also has paradigms, right? It's a corporate culture. We all talk about culture. There's one quote that I love that says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Right? Because it's like, some people talk about it's 5% strategy and 95% culture in an organization. You can have all the best plans in the world. If you don't have the right people that are passionate, that are around it, that are taking the right action to make it happen, it won't happen, right? So being aware of how you're showing up as an individual and every person in your organization, and then how you come together and create that culture, is all about how we are successful.
Yes, and there's a quote that I want to share with the audience right now, and it's beautiful. It's about also the paradigm, and I believe we might have mentioned that before, but it's about shaping the future, right? I mean, there's a reason why organizations are having their goals and objectives. They want to stay in business, they want to stay afloat, they want to keep the relevance of the marketplace. So one thing to keep in mind, that was written by Joel Barker, and he says, to be able to shape your future, you have to be able to be willing and able to change your paradigms. And so if we're looking at the operating system of an individual, they have to become someone new. They have to be able to change their belief system in order to be someone else. And that's the same thing with our culture. If the culture that we have right now, and if we ask ourselves, if things are not changing, what will be the predictable future? And if we don't like that predictable future, we're going to have to change the way we are, and we're going to have to change our culture, and we have to be willing. And the thing is really willing, because we are all able to change the paradigm. The key phrase is really about being willing to do it.
Yep, absolutely. And last time we spoke about, like, you become what you think about, right? So what are you thinking about? What kind of, mental activity is going around? Are you saying to yourself, I can do this. I'm excited to embrace new things. I'm excited to take new actions. Or am I kind of doubting myself? If I'm not showing up effectively, am I procrastinating? Because all of that affects us, right? And I think, talking about paradigms is so powerful and so important to understand, because it actually affects so many things in our lives. I know, Bob Proctor, both of our mentor, he often used to speak about how it affects your logic. And he said that your logic is affected by how you think and the information you have available, right? So when the Wright brothers wanted to start flying, everyone thought it was illogical, right? They had the vision in mind and they did the work. Lots of other people were laughing at them. Then people used to think the earth was flat, right? Because like if it was any other shape, like you would fall off, right? If you were on the side or on the bottom. But that was our logic at the time and that dictated our thinking. So, the way in which you are productive, the way in which you have your logic, your effectiveness, your use of time, are you a procrastinator, and your perception, right? And I think so often, when we debate things in a company or as individuals, it's so often about your perspective, right? I mean, the situation is what it is, but some people see it as negative and some people see it as a great opportunity or positive, right? And that's all about your perspective. The event is the same thing, or the thing that you're dealing with is the same thing, but your paradigms, your thinking, the way in which you see life, we spoke about the filter last time. All of that affects how you make decisions and your effectiveness and your productivity. So being aware of paradigms and then understanding whether they serve you or not is so important.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you and I talked this week, and I just came back from an amazing retreat with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and one of the things that to me was very shocking is that what we see is pretty much almost like 1% of the whole reality. I mean, we don't need to go into the woo-woo, and it's not even about woo-woo. It's like we can go into the quantum laws and really see how the observer has an effect on the environment. It's not the environment, like our own internal environment. It really has an effect on the external. And so when I looked at that, I just thought like that leaves so much space to different ways of looking at things. If we're only seeing 1%, is that possible that somebody else in the team can see it from a different angle? That's absolutely possible, because and even while I was researching that to my newsletter yesterday, I came up on I saw an article, and the person was showing a picture, and the picture was, to me, it was gold. It was a dress that was gold and white, and then the author said some people are seeing blue and black. I'm like, how can you see black and blue if I'm seeing white and gold? And so that's just my eyes and my perception. So imagine when you get into, like you said, the paradigm that it's in a way time. For some reason, people will say, oh, I can do that in no time. And some people will say, it's going to take me so much time. It's going to take us so much time to accomplish this goal. But for other people, like, no, it's super easy. Like, look, we'll use AI, use this, have some resources. We can all do it. So it's very interesting to see how just an internal operating system can have a clear influence on our results.
And I mean, we spoke previously about how 95% of our lives is like controlled by our subconscious mind, and your paradigms sit in your subconscious. And so if your paradigms are controlling your subconscious mind and your thinking and your habitual behavior, and most of what we do is habitual, that means your paradigm is controlling your life.
Exactly.
And today we want to talk about, being aware and then what we can do about it. So do you want to take everyone through the picture?
Absolutely. So, I mean, you just said it, right? 95%, and I can even show a previous slide to it. And let's even go back to some of the things you mentioned. We mentioned that so many times. The way we are, our way of being is really what creates our results. Instead of saying, I'm going to wait until I have this, and then when I have that, I'm going to be able to do this. Like really looking from the inside out, who can we be in order to make that change? Then after that, a great quote that we can also take a look at is from Anais Nin. She said, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. So it's really about our own way of looking at things. And so we have to be open to listen to other people about their ideas and not discard them, because it's just our operating system. There's so many ways to look at things. And so when we're starting to take a look at...
Sorry, just to go back, like that is such a powerful quote, because, firstly, you need to be aware that we all have these different filters, perspectives, ways of seeing things. And secondly, if you're not open-minded and self-aware enough, you won't actually notice it, right? So your gold versus blue, right? At least you're kind of going, I need to be aware that people have a different way of seeing this, right? But I think sometimes we get so set in our ways that you're like, I'm right and you're wrong. And I think that's a very dangerous place to be. The importance of being curious, being open minded, wanting to learn from other people, I think is such an important element to be aware of your biases and your thinking. And then also it makes you a more creative problem solver if you're willing to take other people's perspective into account as well.
I'm so glad you paused on this because you're so right. I mean, this is just you talked about a way of being curious. And
Mm-hmm.
first, being aware. It's so important. Just if people can get that today, to be aware that
Mm-hmm.
maybe the reality is not the reality of others. And you can even see it from your own eyes. It just starts with the way that the brain takes that input and then you see it differently. It starts at that level. So imagine when you start to put some beliefs on top of it. So if we can at least agree on the fact that everyone will see things differently and that we can now be open, being curious, open, and see that maybe there's an idea that I can open my mind to so that we can get to our results for the team faster. And yeah, thank you for pausing on that. This is so important. And now we're going to show you a way of how the mind works. Because the thing is, what's lacking is that we never saw the mind as a picture. And so within
Mm-hmm.
our program, they call it the stick person. And it might look like it's rudimentary, but at the same time, we must have an idea in our mind in order for change. Like if I ask, like, what's your goal? Do you have a vision? It comes in pictures. It's not, if I say bite into a lemon right now, you're going to see the lemon. You're going to imagine you're biting the lemon. We all think in terms of pictures. So the way that it works is that we have a conscious mind and what we call the educated mind, and also the emotional mind, which, by the way, really controls 95% of everything. That controls your body and your actions, which obviously controls your results. So
Mm-hmm.
that alone, to know that we're on autopilot, it's just the way it works. The subconscious takes over. We have a way, the educated mind, everything all the information we talked about it, knowing, doing, gap. Guess what? It's not the knowledge that's going to move the needle. It's the way, your way of being, and your way of being is your subconscious mind. So you must address the subconscious mind or the paradigms or the multitude of fixed habits in order to change your actions and then your results. I wonder
Mm-hmm.
if you want to add something to it.
Yeah, so the previous picture where you're talking about the educated mind, the emotional mind, you and I often talk about conscious and subconscious. So just to kind of clarify, the educated mind is the conscious mind, right? That's where we learn things, we're analytical. And the important thing is that your conscious mind can decide whether it'll accept something or not. So you can go, this makes sense, I accept the thought, or I deny it, right? And that's where you can kind of use that analytical mind of yours. The subconscious or the emotional mind, that bottom half, is the part that just accepts, right? And often ideas are planted in your subconscious mind through repetition. So it's the things you're thinking over and over again, or as a child, the things you've been told over and over again. And that's how those paradigms are formed. So this picture is great because as a child, you don't have an analytical mind, right? You're not critically thinking about things. You're just accepting what you hear from your parents or your loved ones or people that are taking care of you, or things you hear on the TV. It all is just kind of implanted into your thinking. And it's almost like that's the normal you create for the child, right? So without even thinking about it, they do life the way that everyone else around them does, right? You learn the language, you do the things, speak to people in the way that you hear other people speak to. And that is how those like initial paradigms are formed. When you're older, then you do have your conscious mind and you can then think critically whether it works for me or not, right? And I think a lot of people feel like, oh, I've got these bad kind of, belief systems, because that's basically what your current paradigm is. It's like your belief on how you operate as a human, right? And how you see the world. And lots of people go, oh, I was told things that weren't necessarily true, that didn't serve me. And how is that influencing my life? But as an adult, we can choose to change that, right? And sure, you kind of have the hand that you were dealt initially, because you initially got that as a child, but we can change that. And things like, I'm not good enough, or, being successful is difficult, or you have to have many degrees to be able to get a good job. Like those kinds of thinking is often what people think. I mean, a lot of people say to me, I've always been told that I needed to get good grades, go to college, get a good job. And that's the only way that I can be seen as successful from friends or family. And sure, I mean, it's great kind of learning things and getting degrees, but that isn't the only way to be successful. And that belief doesn't serve you. Maybe you want to start a business out of school. Maybe you've got a great idea. Maybe there are so many other ways to do what you're really passionate about. And I think that, those beliefs we need to firstly be aware of, and then question, like, does it serve me? I mean, the one that you and I spoke about is, am I worthy? And if we kind of take a mirror to, just like look at ourselves in the mirror, so many of us have like a really deep feeling that we may not be worthy of success or the perfect partner or opportunities. And we need to believe that we are worthy, and we need to acknowledge things that our belief system that may not be serving us. And then we need to go about changing it so that we can kind of live the life we want to live.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about some of the question for the audience because, now that we've talked about how the mind works, the question I have is, how a mind works, that you have a conscious mind, the emotional mind that takes over. We know that our belief system is really what drives our results. So if you're looking at your life right now, the life personal and also maybe in your team, are you willing to make that change? Are you willing to change your paradigm right now? Like so many people, like raise your hand, say yes. Am I willing to change the way the things are right now? Because if I don't, then I'm just basically bringing the past into my future. I'm creating a predictable future. So how many of you that are watching are saying, yes, I want to change my paradigm? Because we will also teach you what's the way to change the paradigms. And there's actually, I mean, if you're willing, we can talk about it now. There's two ways to change the paradigms. One is normally a shock. And I'm sure some people have that in their life. It could be at work, and maybe they lost their job, or they're being demoted, or maybe it's something, but usually the thing is the shock is negative and we can never really predict it. And so that's when people are saying, hey, you know what, I'm definitely gonna boost my skills. I want to become a manager, or I want to have this promotion. So I have made my mind. I decided this is a firm commitment. I'm gonna change what I need to change in order to become the person that I need to be to have this results in my life. And like I said, that's one way of changing the paradigm. It's usually a shock. The second way, and people can take a note for that, is it's constant spaced repetition. And this is the part that normally people don't like to do because, you know what? This is a daily thing. Like how long did it take you to have the belief that you have right now? If we're going back to this picture, it was something that we've gained when we were a children. And then we have the school, and then you have the society, and then you have what the television is portraying. There's so much programming that's being done on a daily basis. If you want to change your paradigm, you're going to have to constantly apply with constant spaced repetition a new paradigm inside your subconscious mind.
And that goes back to the logic we spoke about earlier, right? Because it's illogical to repeat things over and over again. And it's funny that, when we speak to our clients, we often say to them, we need to have this repetition, right? You need to write your goal down, or you need to, if you're a CEO and you're changing strategy, or you have something new to share with your team, we often think that you share it once and everyone got it. But that's not the case, right? So people need to hear it multiple times and need to hear it in different ways. When we hear something for the first time, you're actually only paying attention for a couple of seconds, right? Like there's been proven that people another thought comes into your mind and you lose attention. So for someone to actually hear your whole story, you have to repeat it over and over again. I mean, I've heard the number 7 times, but I think it's actually, when in doubt, more.
Oh, definitely.
And when you want to change your kind of paradigm, as you said, those beliefs and that thinking and these habits have been ingrained over days, weeks, months, years, right? And to change that, you basically need to repeat in a different way. You need to decide what you're thinking of yourself, what person you want to be, what are these habits, what are these paradigms that I want. And then you need to read it, you need to repeat it to yourself. Some people even record it on their phone and listen to it on loop, right?
Yeah.
Because you need to start believing that is who you are. I've got a client who, one of her big goals is to lose weight. And I said to her, like, if you keep thinking of yourself as someone that can't stick to a diet, is not, good at getting into the habit of eating and preparing well and exercising, like, you will never be successful. You need to see yourself as a fit, athletic person who, embraces their body and is proud of how they, like, what they do, right? I am the person who wakes up early. I am the person who kind of plans my eating well in advance. That is how you see yourself. I'm not the person who is undisciplined. I'm disciplined. I respect myself, my body enough to do this thing. And that's how it needs to change. We need to, in an illogical way, initially start planting these new ideas into our mind. And initially it's going to feel wrong. And you kind of go, oh, I don't know if I believe this. And because that's not really how I feel about myself. But it's the repetition that slowly builds up the new thinking and breaks away the old thinking. And it's only repetition that'll implant that from your conscious mind into your subconscious mind. And we know that's where the change happens.
Yeah, there's so much gold of what you're saying. I took probably 5 or 6 different notes on just what you just mentioned. I think that, when you say planting the seeds, I love this analogy because then also want to talk about the learning curves of
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen when we change and we make that committed decision. The committed decision is really, really important. The thing is, like you said, if it's logical, can we suspect that that will create logical results or predictable results? So if you really want to change, you're going to have to do something illogical in your own way of being at the moment, so that and that means you're going to be in the unknown. You haven't done that before. So you're going to do something that looks like illogical because that's the only way you can change. If you're creating a type, you're at point A, you want to be point B, the point B is not doing the same type of activities. The person is not doing the same thing. The team's not doing the same thing. The culture is different. It's going to be illogical. It's going to be in the unknown and most probably uncomfortable. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's important to know that initially it will look uncomfortable because your subconscious mind has been trained to be on that treadmill for a while. And the brain wants to keep us safe. It's just, hey, why bother with this new thing? Like, you know how to be. Why should we have this
Start
type of
tomorrow.
effort?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's very subtle. So it's just tomorrow. I'm not saying we don't want to do it now. It's just tomorrow. But we know what's going to happen with tomorrow, right? Like, when is the day to change? It's now. And so one thing that I also wanted to talk about is the learning curve. So for the people that now this said, yes, okay, I'm committed. I want to change that. I know it's from the inside out. It's not the external. It starts with me. It starts with the team. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that there's two level of learning curves. One is exponential. So how does that start? It starts like this, and then eventually it goes up. So that means that for a while, nothing's gonna change. It might look on the outside that you planted the seed and you can even have another partner that could start the same challenge with you, and they'll continue. If we take the example of diet, they'll continue to eat the cake and you will go to the gym and you won't see, even like, you look like very similar for a while, and the person can start to laugh at you and say, hey, I'm eating the cake
My way's
every
working.
day, look at me, like I'm the same. But what's going to happen in a year from now, there's a point where the exponential curve will absolutely be there, and the results will be different. Like, the other person's going to go like this, maybe their health is not going to be optimal, they're going to start to have some disease, illnesses, whatever it is. But the point is that it's going to take some time, and then boom, you're going to have this exponential curve. So it's good to know, because that
Yeah.
means that the repetition, the conscious decision you made to change and have new habits, might take some time before you see the results. And there's another curve. The other curve is logarithmic. So that means you will start and then boom, you're going to have quite a beautiful breakthrough in the beginning, but then there's a plateau. So if you know that you got the breakthrough and after that, like, yeah, but and then like it doesn't work. It just worked in the
Mm.
beginning, but then it doesn't work. You might just be on that logarithmic curve, which means also that you can go back to an exponential curve, or maybe, but you have to be patient to do the illogical until the results happen, and then until you can make new choices.
Wow, that's such an important thing to know, and such a great reminder, right? Because I think we often get impatient. We like, I'm doing this thing, Francis, I'm like, you told me to write my goal and do this thing, and I've been doing it for a couple of days, and I'm not seeing like this thing, like it hasn't happened yet. Why, right? And I think the exponential curve is a great reminder. I think everyone remembers the part where it goes up like this, and they don't remember it's like almost flat in the beginning before it goes up. And the same thing is in business. I mean, you were talking about doing the same thing and getting the same result. So many companies that I work with are like, oh, we're going to try and grow by like 5, or like if we're really pushing ourselves 10% this year. And I'm like, why not 100? Why not? Right. But what will that look like? And what do you need to do to get there? Because you're not doing more of the same, right? More of the same will get you a little bit, that'll get you the 5 or the 10%. And I think that's where you completely need to kind of break down everything that you think was kind of status quo and go, okay, if we had to be really creative about doing this thing, like what would it look like? It's almost starting from scratch again and just going, we can rewrite this thing. I think so often we feel like we're kind of stuck in a box, those things that the process has always worked for us, or we've always done it this way. When I hear those things, it's a big red flag. Is that still the right thing to do? Maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. And it's worth rethinking those. And just being willing to ask the questions and being willing to just go, hey, like, what does exponential look like for me as an individual and for me as my organization? And then going back to your have, do, be, who do we need to be to get there? Who do I need to be as a leader? And who are we as an organization if we want to get to those results?
Yeah, and I love the language that you use, because I think it's also another great little insight for people if they're in a team and they're like, okay, let's go exponential. And you hear two words, never or always. That's a paradigm right there, because the always never is 95%. That's what controls everything. That's the treadmill. So if you ever see yourself saying never or always, that's a belief system right there. That means that you think that this is a reality, but we also understood today that there are different ways of looking at things. The perception could be very different, and all of a sudden, instead of shooting for 5 or 10%, we can shoot for 100. And shooting for 100, what I like about this type of thinking, I believe we also mentioned that, imagine you can realize your dream, 20 years of dream into 3 years. That means your actions are going to have to be different. Your belief system must be different. So it's asking a different question that will give you a different strategy. If we were saying, okay, let's shoot for 20% growth this year, well, the type of activities that you're going to do or will be very different than if we say 10x. And then what's going to be in the way is the paradigm, because that's going to be, well, we've never done that. It's never working. It takes time, whatever it is. But that's a beautiful way to observe, what are we really thinking about it? Like, what's our belief system behind that? What's our culture? Do we have the culture that sustained this strategy, or we must change? Are we committed to do it? And if it takes time, it's normal, because we haven't done that before. We're doing the illogical, guys. And is that fun and exciting? Absolutely. So let's have fun in the journey for it. Going back to lesson number 1, right? Like the episode 1, when we said it, purpose of a goal is not to achieve it. Purpose of the goal is to grow. So if we grow and we have fun and we do the habits on a constant basis, we focus and we're committed on the process, then results will be completely different.
Absolutely. And that ties in so well with the title of this conversation, right? Being a leader is like working from the inside out. It's an inside job. You need to, understand yourself, be self-aware, know what you want to do, challenge yourself to do different things, to, be outside of your comfort zone, challenge norms, because when you do the inside job, like the outside world gets easy, right? Because you show up completely differently. And with a company, the inside job is creating the culture, and then the outside results will happen. So, just being aware that it all happens internally. And you and I were talking about that McKinsey article that you shared with me that also spoke about being a leader from the inside out, and being self-aware, having the resilience, especially in these kind of times, and just being able to kind of navigate changes. I mean, there's so much changing in the economy right now, and I almost feel like that is going to really differentiate businesses that are kind of on their toes, willing to pivot, willing to be creative, and others that just go, do you know what, like I can't operate like this. So this is really going to be, I think, quite a pivotal point.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring the article because I think I want to read a section of it, which people will recognize exactly what we talked about today. It was about cultivating inner and outer worlds. It said learning, growth, and self-reinvention start with introspection. That's the inner world.
Mm.
Leaders first need to examine their inner selves and overcome their own barriers and biases. That's coming from McKinsey. And then what is it that you really want to accomplish? Going back to the vision and the
Oh,
goal. What is it you really
mm,
want to accomplish? What behaviors do you want to model? Basically, who do I need to be? What
mm,
assumptions, perceptions are you making, including about yourself, that stand in the way? That's the paradigm. And this introspection requires leader to assess situation in an unbiased manner, being open-minded, which will mean listening deeply to a network of stakeholders, including coaches, who can reflect the leader's own needs back to them and offer advice. That's exactly what we were mentioning today. That's in the article. So if people are doubters, well, now if you really believe in McKinsey and you believe in what
mm.
we're saying, that's it. Like you just need to change the way you're looking at things and to change the way that you are.
Yeah. And I
Almost,
think,
yeah.
go for it.
So, well, one thing I want to say is you mentioned the self-image, and I think it's very important because, when you said I am worthy, one question I would probably ask the audience right now is like, what do you think are a belief about yourself or about the company or the culture that's in the way? If it starts with an I am or we are, what would be a limiting belief? And what can you replace it with? Because I think another great I am statement or way of being is to say that we are able, we are capable. People that are overwhelmed, normally the deep unconscious belief is that, oh, I'm not capable of doing that. So if they think that I'm incapable of doing it, well, that's why they're overwhelmed. And that's the belief system that needs to be changed. What if you are able? What if the 10x is possible? Who do you need to be then, now that you believe that it's possible?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, a lot of people kind of go, I'm not sure where to start in terms of the paradigms. And look, we've given tidbits about the way in which you speak, like the language often gives it away a little bit, but I think the fact kind of is that look at results in your life that you aren't happy with. Is it a sales number? Is it your personal life? There could be so many elements to our lives, but what is one or two things that you want to focus on that you feel like should improve in your life? Then try and unpack what is your thinking around that? What is your belief system? What are you always getting stuck on? If it's in a corporate sales environment, is it, I battle to find leads, or I'm not good at closing, or the right clients don't come to me. And if that's a belief system, it's worth writing it down. And I think these days we all kind of go, yeah, I've got it, or I'm hearing you. We don't like writing things down, but writing causes thinking, right? As you write something down, often you think of other things or something. I've often started writing and suddenly a whole bunch of things come out. So write those things down that you aren't happy with in your life. And then think about the polar opposite. What would that look like? Would it be the best clients find me every day, or I close every deal that I have? And what would that opposite look like? And write those things down. Those are the things that you need to start repeating to yourself over and over again. If you walk into the office every day believing that you're not going to be successful, the clients won't come to you, or I'm doing a big presentation and I don't think anyone's going to like it, of course it's not going to go well. You need to walk into that presentation going, I know I'm well prepared. I've considered all the different inputs that I have. I know this is the right thing for the organization, and I'm going to do my best to convey this message to the people that need to make that decision. How am I serving them? How am I sharing my knowledge with them? And how am I helping them make the right decision for the company? It doesn't just have to be about me looking right. It's about what is the right thing for everyone involved. Is it clients? Is it the company? Is it me personally? I think if you come from a place of wanting to serve and wanting to be of service to everyone who this touches, that is a good place to be. And when you walk in knowing that you are going to do the right thing and you have this belief, that's when things start to change.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you bring that up. And it's And I think that, some of the key takeaways, I think we can actually start to make a little bit of a conclusion about all of this is that, what's very important is going back to the basic, and also said, like you said, the detailed description of the results that the team wants to have, and that they don't want, like really, like, and once you start to take a look at what is it that we're doing that we don't want, and what's causing that, what are the productive actions that can replace the non-productive actions or the habits that we have right now. If this is a culture that we have and we can keep on doing this, we know that the predictable future is not right. So what is it that leads to that? What are the habits that would lead to this result, and which ones can we actually remove, release, and change into a new habit? Only one or two that could move the needle so that the results will change. And of course, we need to be aligned in our own belief system that this is possible. And I think that, if we go back to Bob Proctor, he was an exceptional salesperson. He changed an entire organization, insurance organization, by changing two things. He said, everyone's going to go talk to a client at 9 a.m. in the morning, and everyone's going to ask for an order of 100K. And it was met with resistance because at that time in the 70s, selling insurance for 100K was unheard of. It was something that would happen just once in a while. And he said, why would we not do that? Why should we not? Like, let's ask for the order. I'm only asking you to do this. Believe it's possible. Be in front of someone at 9 a.m. and then ask for an order of 100K. And he said, they've written the whole industry for millions of dollars more just based on those two habits. So you have to take a look at what you're doing right now and what are the productive habits or new behavior, new paradigm that we can change so that it leads to the result. And then, of course, it's a vision. It's that everyone reminding them about the vision and visualizing that. And if you do it on the personal perspective, it's interesting. I was watching a video yesterday about a kid. Actually, he's very good at asking questions. He was asking people on the street and say, what was the first time you made $1 million? And he was talking to a woman in Miami, and she said, 26. So what are the things that you're doing so that it led to your millions? And one thing that she mentioned was Mind Movie. Wow, this is interesting. So she is repeating herself, rehearsing a mental rehearsal of the results that she wants. And she has 6 businesses. So I mean, she's very successful, and she's doing her own work of Mind Movie. So as a leader, do I see my team performing and the culture, everyone's gelled, everyone's happy? Can I rehearse that? Because the thing is, you're rehearsing something, but are you rehearsing the right scenario? That's the question.
And your last point about your team already in possession of the results is really powerful, because I think that a lot of this is kind of inside work and work that you do as yourself. But for an organization to change and the culture to be affected, it's so powerful when everyone comes behind something. If everyone is supporting one another and sharing the kind of journey, and that kind of example you used of the insurance company, if everyone is doing the same thing, we're all changing at the same time and we're all supporting each other. And I think that change can be hard sometimes. You're doing things that are uncomfortable or doing new things, and it's so powerful to have that support system so that you and your team collectively can make the changes that gives you the results you want.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we hope that what we gave you today gave you a lot of insights, powerful insights. We're here to help. We'd love to connect with you and your organization, either as a leader or the team. We've had so much experience in terms of dealing with these type of things and really understanding the power of our own mind, like leading from the inside out. So this is for you to take a picture at if you want to connect with us. And yeah, I think any departing words that you'd like to add for this beautiful episode again?
Yeah, it's all about the inside work. Outside results only change when we change from the inside. And we so easily get influenced by everything that's going around us, but everything starts inside. So when you take the time to be introspective, to be self-aware, to unpack the thoughts and beliefs that are serving you or not, that is when true change happens. So it's all about doing the inside work And then you can create the results and the life that you want.
Mic drop. And by the way, all of this knowledge that we shared today is in a Google Doc that we love to share with you guys. So if you go back to the previous slides, the key takeaway had a barcode, so you just need to scan it. And some of the questions, 6 questions, will be asked, and so you don't need to worry about it. We're here to support you. All previous episodes had the same thing as a resource, so we're here to help. And thank you so much for your wisdom and insights, Elise. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with
Absolutely.
you. Next
Yeah.
episode will have also great insights in 2 weeks. So thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And yeah, have an amazing leader's path from the inside out.
Absolutely. It was great having this conversation, and all the best. We will see you next time.
See you next.
Take care.